Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and today I am continuing with my 12 days of Christmas, during which I make 12 videos related to Christmas between the 1st and 25th of December about every other day. Now the second video, the 12 days of Christmas, was telling you about a book called Sam Kills Christmas, as well as telling you about my plans for Indiecember, which is an event started by Megan Tennant, I believe that's her name, of Cloud Kitten Chronicles. Her channel will be linked below, as well as the Indiecember website, as well as the books I'm going to be mentioning. So, I have, as of today, which is the 6th, finished 3 of the 5 books I had plans for in December. I got done with them extra quick because they were all short. The short stories of Augie Peterson is a collection of short stories, but they are about flash fiction length, so even when there was a group of them, it was still shorter than a full-length novel. And then the other 2 stories were short stories, or novella length short stories. I have 2 remaining on my Indiecember TBR. One of them is another novella-length tale, and then the other one is actually a 400 and some page full-length novel. So I will see how long it takes me to complete them, and then if I am done before the end of December, I will be tackling a few more of my indie books that I've collected that just didn't happen to line up with the bingo I had planned. By the way, if I am stroking around this area during the video, my cat is in my lap.
Say hello, Fluffy. Yes. Yes, aren't you so excited to be in the video? Yes.
So, my Kindle has decided to not be charged right now and not have a plugin available, so I won't be showing you the covers right now, but they are in my Indiecember plans video, which I'll link below. Well, thank you, Fluffy. That's so nice. Yeah, that's lovely. She has fish breath permanently. She drinks out of our fish tank.
Aren't you sweet? Aren't you just so sweet? Yes, you're my sweetie.
She has permanent fish breath because she drinks out of our fish tank, and the water smells like fish. Oh, thank you. The first book that I reviewed for Indiecember, actually the author has taken down from Amazon or has made it unavailable for sale right now, so I don't know if it's going to count anymore. But I have some other books that might fill the slot, so I can shuffle around and fill it, because this one was just for the novella, and I have 2 other novellas basically that I'm reading for Indiecember, so if this one doesn't work out, I can substitute those and find other things to fill their slots. But I was able to review it on Amazon, so if she ever decides to make it available for sale again, my review will be there at least. Put on the screen the name of the book I'm talking about. It's by Ann Wheeler, and as I said in the Indiecember plans video, she became an online friend of mine, so I checked out her books. This was the second of her books that I've read. I already read and reviewed Azure Skies on my channel quite a while ago, so if you want to know more about that, I will link it below. This book is set in space. It's a space opera, not like the not at all like space opera, the title of a book by Catherine Valente. It's a space opera as in the genre, meaning just that it is a drama that takes place in space. This particular one is set in the same universe as Azure Skies and has the same bad guys, that is the Hadarans, who are a empire who likes to take things over. And in this case, in this story, they have taken over a space station basically that is on a moon, I believe, but the air around the area is basically toxic. And so everyone who is there is just there to do science experiments. It's a science station. Use the stuff on the moon to do these science experiments. It's not like a colony. But the Hadarans decided that they wanted the information from the science on this moon, so they came and took it over. And this story follows one of the scientists and how she basically goes through her place of work getting taken over and the place where she lives, and what happens to her and her friends. Basically introduces her character, because at the end of the story it's not really a conclusion, it's you can tell it's more of a setup for continuing, so I assume that we're going to hear more about this character in Unbroken Fire, which is the next in the series. I quite like the story. It's a little darker than what I usually like, but I think that the darkness was really handled well. It wasn't overly dwelled upon, which is really annoying in books, but it also wasn't glanced over and taken lightly. I think it was given adequate time for the characters to process all the bad things that were happening and them thinking about it, but without dwelling on it. And I really appreciate when an author can balance that well. Which is basically a continuation of, she's quite good at doing the same thing in Azrian Skies, so this is just a further recommendation of the author in general, since you can't get this particular book at the moment. I believe I gave it 4 stars on Amazon. Usually if I like a book, but it's not like, you know, my favoritist ever, which is like reserved for people like Naomi Novik and Emily Rada and Catherine Valente. But if I liked a book, it's just not on that amazing level. I usually give it 4 stars on Amazon. I don't like star ratings because they're so generic and people rate them so differently that it doesn't feel very useful. But obviously on Amazon Reviews, which is a lot of where, and Goodreads actually, which is where Amazon and Goodreads is where the Indiecember reading challenge is based, there are star ratings, so I give it 4 stars. Then we have the short stories of Augie Peterson, which the title of is Night Vision. It's called Night Vision, I remember. Also, as I said, Augie Peterson has become an online friend of mine, so that's why I selected this book. I actually paid full price for this book. It was $5, not $1 like all the other ones, or less. Some of them I got for free. But she does short stories on her podcast, so if you want to hear her short stories for free and not risk your $5 before you know what it's like, you can listen to her, which I will link her podcast below. Augie Peterson is a funny lady. I really like her sense of humor, and so I assumed that I would like this book, and in fact I did. I definitely handle short stories or flash fiction of horror a lot better than I handle full-length novels, because the other flash fiction book of horror that I've read before and recommended on this channel I actually quite enjoyed as well. So I like the flash fiction because it's sort of one of the coolest things about horror is all the weird concepts they come up with to make creepy things, and so with flash fiction you can get those cool concepts and cool tight writing without having to be in this dark maw of creepiness for a long period of time. So I usually read 1 or 2 of these stories at a time, and then I didn't have to be scared for too long, and could just like get the story encapsulated and move on with my life. So I think that Augie did a great job of coming up with original concepts and having them be successfully creepy. One of the things that I liked about the stories was they gave you clues as to what was going on, and clues to make you think, now this isn't quite right, but they never gave away the ending, which is sometimes a hard balance to create. So I also gave 4 stars to Night Vision by Augie Peterson. And then the third book from my Indiecember TBR, which I've left to the end of the video because I didn't want anyone to watch it particularly, was The Sleeping Sickness by A.R. Hellbender. But the author is a booktuber who I really like. I decided to pick one of her books to fill out the booktuber square of Indiecember. Augie's short stories, by the way, were for red on the cover, which is part of the bingo I'm working on. So I picked The Sleeping Sickness. It has a great cover and a great concept. It is a steampunk retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but I ended up only giving 2 stars to this book, basically because there are a few major issues that weren't like, if something is an issue like once or a couple of times, it's not a big deal, but these were kind of systemic issues. There really wasn't as much world building as would have been good. There were just mentions of various mechanical creatures, and the mentions of the mechanical creatures let you know that it was steampunk, but there was really nothing built into it, like how the society would actually work with things being steampunk. That was one thing that was just disappointing. It wasn't like a deal breaker. Much more important was the fact that a lot of the characters didn't feel very real because they weren't given a lot of characterization that was shown. Everything was just told about them, and we didn't actually get to see them doing any things that were talked about. Like, the main character is a potion maker, but we never saw her working on potions except for the main plot. We never saw her doing any kind of experiments or anything, and we never actually saw her doing any of the experiments that she supposedly does all the time, working on machines. We just got told that she'd done it. And we saw some of the products of her labors. And also all the other characters basically had the same problem. We were told things about them, but we never actually saw them in any way. Which, once again, telling over showing is fine a little bit, but this is a systemic thing throughout the book. And the third problem, which is also quite major, is that the characters' motivations didn't make sense. Things were clearly being done by the characters to make the plot go a certain way, rather than because it made sense, or because the characters would do that. The characters did a lot of things that didn't make sense based on their characters or based on any kind of logic. They just did it because that's what would make this retelling of this story happen. And that could be fixed by, like, adding extra complications to make the things they did logical, like showing that a certain option was blocked off, so they had to take this other less logical option, as opposed to just taking the less logical option first off without even considering a better idea. Overall, this would be a really great story if one of two things happened. One, this could be told in a different format where it's more like a sort of lore fairy tale sort of way of telling things, but there's a way of doing that in the language that you use, which is a lot like the language of thorns, the short stories in the language of thorns. Those encapsulate a big story in a very a small number of words, and I think this is a big story that she has. The story has great vision. It just isn't pulled through very well, and I think for a story this big and a concept this big, it really needs to either be expanded into a full-length novel and really get into those details that were lacking, and get into the explanations of people's characters and the explanations of why they did the things they did, and actually getting to see people's characterization rather than having it told. You could do that if you expanded this into a full-length novel, or you could transfer this into fairy tale formatting, and in that way encapsulate all these big issues and big deals into a shorter tale. Basically, the whole idea for the story I really like. I like the inventions the main character makes. I like the way the author worked out how she is a twist on the character she's twist on. I don't want to give it away. It's a little bit of a spoiler, a mid-book spoiler, not an end of the book spoiler. The main character is not Sleeping Beauty or the prince. The main character is another character in the story who has been totally reworked, like who she is and how she could play this part while being a totally different person, and I really like that. I hope she continues to write and just like grows her craft, because this is like a first or second book that she's written. It's normal that it's not like as great as like a 20th novel that someone's written. I talked about this in my review of Heartstone, about new versus later author. I've not tagged the author in this. I kind of hope she never watches it, but it is awkward when somebody says they're reading your book and then you never hear back from them again. Someone posted about that on Twitter a while ago, and it's true. I've both done that and had that done to me, so I know from both sides it's very awkward. So I just wanted to get out the truth of that, and also, even though I don't usually talk about negative reviews, especially for indie books, since I told you I was reading it, I didn't think that I should go and just never mention it again. But it's not at all put me off the author as far as reading her work again. I'll definitely get samples of her new books, of her other books, because she's already published a few others. So I will see you back here to tell you what I thought of the other two books on my Indiecember TBR. First, there will probably be baking and art videos on this channel, so if you want to see those, you can subscribe and hit the bell. Probably everyone stopped watching by now anyway, but thank you so much for watching as much as you did, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!